If you aren't familiar with the program, Catching Up on Cinema is a film analysis podcast wherein we introduce each other to films, expand our cinematic horizons, and, in essence, catch up on our cinema. So it is the month of December 2022, and is once again that very special time of the month wherein we do our very special Tales from the Shelf episode. And in joining me in this endeavor, I have my good buddy Brad from the Cinema Speak podcast. How's it going, Brad?
It's going great. Glad to be back. Ready to talk some movies, and it feels like it's been a while, but it feels like it hasn't been a while. It's always good to be back and talk some movies, and specifically movies that we own in our collection.
Oh, yes. It's always a lovely occasion to get together with you, Brad, and talk about some movies and whatnot. And speaking of movies, so Tales from the Shelf is, of course, a podcast wherein Brad and I talk about our mutual film collections, our DVDs, our Blu-rays, and our 4K discs. So this is just an excuse for us every month to get together and talk about the movies from our various collections. But speaking of movies, in particular, I recently went to my local Best Buy for the first time since college, so 10 years
Wow.
plus. And it was quite the experience. I mean, it wasn't like it was actually kind of dull. It was very, very dead. It was in the middle of the fucking morning on a Tuesday afternoon, so it wasn't exactly thrilling or anything. But it was really trippy for me to go to my parents' neighborhood like Best Buy that I grew up going to, and to be away from it for so long. It was really strange to set foot in there and just see how much it fucking changed, man. Like Brad, I understand you go to Best Buy fairly frequently. Like you buy a lot of movies there. Like what's your general assessment of Best Buy as a DVD and Blu-ray and 4K vendor?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do go to Best Buy a fair bit. You said this is the first time you've gone since college. I went 3 times last week alone. So I I have a little more experience there. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, I have been going this past week. That was a rare exception. It was because I kept going to buy Black Christmas on 4K, which their app said they had in stock. And I get there on Tuesday, they didn't have it out, and I had an appointment to get to. I go back on Wednesday. I'm like, I'll give them another day, and I had to be somewhere in like 20 minutes. So I'm like, I have 20 minutes. I'll ask somebody if it's not out. Well, I get there, it's not out. I can't find anybody. Eventually, I have to leave. So then I do curbside pickup. I say, all right, I know they got it. I'm gonna have them bring it to me. So I end up doing that. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely in terms of like the physical media, the Best Buys have obviously gone, they've scaled back quite a bit. But I mean, I gotta say, even though they really at like my Best Buy, they only have like one main shelf and then like a new release kind of like cube, I guess you'd say. Even though they really only have a couple of places where they put movies and, they used to have shelves and shelves. I will say they still do carry a pretty good amount of stuff. Like I was just in there last week and they carry a lot of Shout Factory 4K new releases. They had 3 or 4 Criterions on the shelf at my local Best Buy, which I was surprised at. All 4Ks, all new releases, and all full retail price, very expensive. But it was cool seeing those out in the wild. I mean, I was almost tempted to buy Malcolm X for $16 more than I would in one of the sales, but I said I don't need it that bad. But yeah, they've definitely the physical media. No surprise, it's gone downhill there in the last decade since you've been.
Yeah, that seemed to very much be the case, but they often say like physical media is on its way out, and that also may very well be the case. I'm not so sure. I don't really have my finger to the pulse when it comes to that sort of thing. But funny you mentioned Malcolm X, because that was, I think, the one Criterion that I saw in there as well. Also for way higher than I'd be willing to pay for it. So, but like, do you have a favorite place to buy your movies these days, Brad? Or is it Best Buy just because of convenience?
It's partly Best Buy because of convenience. I like their reward system as well. You get, rewarded pretty regularly. And I mean, I kind of go back and forth between Best Buy or just ordering on Amazon. A lot of times I do Best Buy like delivery because I will say what I actually prefer buying from Best Buy online over Amazon, because they tend to package their shipments a little more. Their packaging's a little more sturdy. Like if you're gonna buy a single movie, Amazon will send it in like that, like just kind of paper mailer envelope, whereas Best Buy, theirs is like a thicker cardboard paper mailer sort of thing. So there's a little more protection there. But yeah, generally, if there's like a new release and I want it that day, I will usually go to Best Buy, go to the store. Not that I buy that many new releases the day of, but for Black Friday, it's Best Buy all the way for me. I think I bought 13 movies on Black Friday at Best Buy. I mean, the prices were just too good to pass up. So I've kind of just lately just been waiting until Black Friday, and then I just stock up on all my, big studio releases for the year.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad way to go about it. I mean, you save a buck, and it's like it's just condensing it all into one sale period rather than just
Hmm.
like a sprinkling throughout the year, which is more my style, honestly. But um, as for myself, I have Owls on the Ave out here in Seattle, in the U District. That's one of my very favorite just stores in the whole city. They do vinyl, old video games, new video games, movies of all sorts. Like it's just kind of a grab bag of all the shit I like. I don't collect vinyl, but I have friends who do. But they actually opened a new store like across the street from the old store just the other day. It's called Hi-Fi Lo-Fi, I think.
Hmm.
And it looks interesting, but they didn't really have it up and running when I set foot in there. But it looks like it's kind of more of the same shit, but more focused. But they were doing a great job setting up the place. But and also Scarecrow Video is Kyle's go-to place for just like window shopping, and also they have like literally every Criterion movie basically for sale. Like
Yeah.
just they have a whole wall dedicated to just the Criterion collection. So like last time we were in there together, that's how he ended up getting me Deep Cover. But those are probably two of my favorite spots out here. But anyway, Tales from the Shelf generally has a theme, and we haven't even gotten to that yet. This seems to be a new tradition with the program, Brad. Longer intros. I'm
We're
sure
just
people
vibing,
listening.
dude. We're just
I'm
like
pretty
having
sure people
fun.
love hearing us just bullshit about exactly nothing for 10 minutes before we even get to the thing. I'm pretty sure that's a required element for any podcast. But
Yeah.
um, this month, the theme, as far as I understand, I pulled this directly out my ass just like 5 minutes before we started recording, is aquatic adventures or aquatic action, something along those lines. So I was telling Brad before we started recording that we're going to be doing a little something that, as far as I understand, in like Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast circles, there's a term rules lawyering, or like lawyering the rules. This is where you basically use the rule book laid out in front of you, and you put a little finesse on it. You spin it to suit your needs. So there may have to be a little bit of that comes into play during this discussion, because Aquatic Adventures is pretty broad. It doesn't really point to anything. It just basically means there's some water, there's some action. Okay. So the idea here is that we may have veto power over each other as we go back and forth sharing our aquatic adventure picks. And what I mean by that is, some of these movies might not have enough water content to really fit under this particular umbrella. And if that is the case, I think we should both be authorized to just drop the hammer and say, get that shit out of here. Otherwise, you can give us a good old Mills Lane. I'll allow it. RIP, by the way. Very unfortunate. Mills Lane, the former judge on television. That was a weird phase of his career. Judge Mills Lane, former boxing referee, best remembered for being the third man involved in the Bite Fight, aka Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield 2. And then, of course, the lovable referee from MTV's Celebrity Deathmatch. But yeah, RIP. He passed away very recently. But
Hmm.
anyway, we should get to the picks, Brad. And as is customary, I will do my hosting duty of promptly throwing Brad directly under the bus, or in this case, I guess, the yacht. and asked that
Oh,
he serve up his pick first. So, Brad, what is your first aquatic adventure?
well, Trevor, I know we don't want to date this episode at all, but I think it needs to be said. People might be thinking, what the hell are these guys doing talking about water in December? And the reason that you brought up and you said this is good timing is the release of Avatar, The Way of Water. Way of water or of the water? Of water? Of the water? Might need to veto that.
I think it's
Um,
Way of Water.
the Way
But
of Water.
synergy, folks.
Yes.
Synergy. Promotional synergy. That's what we're going for with our small time podcast.
I mean, this by the time you're listening to this, who knows? I might have already gone under the way of water and submerged myself because we all know that Avatar is going to blow us all away. Um, and the reasons can blow us all away is a man named Jimmy C. And, what better way to kick off this aquatic adventures than with another Jimmy C classic? And he does have several aquatic adventures to choose from, actually. Um, one of them does not have a Blu-ray or 4K release yet, The Abyss, even though the 4K is supposed to be coming early next year. But no, this one I'm going to talk about Titanic. Titanic. Trevor, does this qualify as an aquatic adventure? They're dry most of the movie. Most of the movie, they are dry. Most of it.
Uh, I'll allow it.
All right. All right. I mean, once the water starts rushing in, I mean, it gets wet big time. Big time. And I had seen this movie a long, long time ago. And I don't remember what I thought of it because it was like my sister watched it. She's older than me. And, she was just losing it for Leo. And I was I guess I just wanted to watch people, you know, try and survive the disaster aspect of it. But I rewatched it recently, and I gotta say, a lot of people make fun of Titanic, but I actually think it holds up quite well. I think it is a really good film. Um, I think it's very well paced, and the classic thing of you appease all audiences. You got the romance and you got the disaster thing. So it's a great date night movie because the guys will love the survival aspect of the last half. The girls will love the romance that carries through the whole thing. Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of great stuff there. I mean, the romance, it's not like my favorite, but it does work pretty well. The sort of class structure, and the Leo being from the poor class and Kate Winslet being from the upper class, like that stuff. You know that's pretty on the nose, pretty obvious, not my favorite. But I think when the ship goes down, I think it's exciting. I think it still holds up very well. And I had a real good time revisiting this. Even though it's a very long movie, I think it is paced really well. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun going back to it. Still no 4K of this one, surprisingly. Let me actually hide that. I was going to show you the inside, but I haven't redeemed the digital code, so I'm not going to show you that. But I mean, look, this set, we got 2 Blu-rays, 2 DVDs. You got everything you need in here. But yeah, Titanic, it held up for me. I just watched it earlier this year.
Oh yeah, no, I really enjoyed Titanic. I think it's a fantastic film. The visual effects alone are very much worth the price of admission. And on top of that, like James Cameron has a knack for taking things that are like on paper very very simple and very very known and very tropey, and somehow triggering some aspect of your brain and tricking you into believing you've never seen it before when you absolutely have millions of times. Only thing is the devil's in the details. His execution is special. Like he really knows how to pace out a film. He really knows how to craft action sequences and sprinkle in exposition on the fly that feels very organic rather than clunky and obnoxious. And you're absolutely right. Like a huge part of the appeal of Titanic is it has that Top Gun factor where it's got something for everybody. Where it's like if you just hang in there, like every 10, 20 minutes or so, it'll throw you an angle that if the preceding 20 minutes weren't working for you, guess what? Right around the corner, there's probably something that will. And it helps that it's absolutely beautiful to look at. There's a lot of fantastic character actors who really show the fuck up for it. Um, and I mean, James Horner's score, he's one of those people that uh, I miss him quite a lot. He did recycle a lot of his material over the years for sure, and he did have like a signature sound that he seemed to be like really held fast to for a long time there. But man, he gave us some really amazing scores, and it really sucks that he's gone. Actually, that's one thing that popped into my head when you brought up Way of Water, is that he's not around to compose that film, nor any of the other future Avatar films. I don't know that that's a huge deal because I wasn't a huge fan of the score for the first Avatar film. Um, but he's worked with James Cameron so many times. He's done so much magic with him that it's just one of those elements that a part of me is concerned that like maybe that's a part of the puzzle that maybe I undervalued, and if he's not present for that, maybe it'll hurt the product going forward. I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass. I actually haven't read or listened to any reviews for Avatar Way of Water just yet. But I just thought it was worth mentioning because he's a fantastic composer and he's no longer with us. So his sound won't be attached to those films going forward. But yeah, Titanic's awesome, man. Like I know, especially young boys crapped all over that thing back when it first came out, mostly because Leonardo DiCaprio was being pushed as a teen idol really, really,
Mm-hmm.
really hard at the time. So it was like, playground talk. Everybody thought he's like, oh, fuck that guy. It's like, I'm not gonna like this movie just because he's in it. It's like, well, if you actually watch the fucking thing, it's really good. And
Yeah.
actually, the girlfriend hasn't seen it, and I'd really,
Mm.
really like to get her to because, but it's actually a really hard sell because the
Yeah.
runtime on Titanic is a hard sell for anybody in 2022. Um, but I do think it's a really great film, man. Like it
You
has
don't
so
feel
much
the
depth to it.
runtime. Like
No,
it moves. I mean, you got the opening closing with the dive team and the old woman, and just the way that it continues to build on itself. Even though it is long and like it's like, oh, you got to sit down for 3 hours to watch it. When you're watching it, it does not feel like 3 hours. It's always very engaging and entertaining. So if you can get her to sit down and try it, I don't think you'll have any issue.
yeah, that's my suspicion is that it'll grab her, it'll hook her. Very very similar to Aliens, actually. Previous Jim Cameron and James Horner collaboration. As soon as Lieutenant Gorman starts flipping the fuck out and he's in the APC watching everything go to shit, uh, that movie just grabbed her, and it was like, even though like it was legitimately kind of scaring her, like she was like, no, I must know what happens now.
Hmm.
And that's the power of fucking James Cameron, man. He knows how to make a fucking movie. It's I don't know exactly what it is. It's like it's almost like baseball shit where it's just like, man, that guy's got some monstrous intangibles to his game. It's
Yeah.
just like on paper, it's like good luck quantifying exactly what it is that makes his stuff work so incredibly well. But when he brings it, it's truly special.
Everybody always doubts him, and he always delivers. In fact, he's always thinking 2 steps ahead. He's thinking 2 steps ahead so much that people doubted him with Titanic, and he blew them away. People doubted him with Avatar, the first one, and it became the highest grossing movie ever. And I think he's playing such 4D chess that he intentionally made the first Avatar disappointing, that everyone would say, "No, we don't want Avatar 2." And guess what? We're going to go see Avatar 2. And even though I don't even like the first Avatar, Avatar 2 is going to blow me away. I know he's playing 4D chess. It's the long con. It's the long con. And I think I'm ready. I'm ready for Avatar 2, 3, 4. Let's keep them coming, baby. I just keep Jimmy C. Let's just keep pumping that Jimmy C juice into our veins.
Yeah, just plug it directly in there. Yeah, it's funny because like at this very moment, I have zero hype for Way of Water.
Oh, I'm hyped.
I know you're hyped, Brad, and that's no
And I
judgment
didn't
on
even
you.
like the first one.
I mean, that's kind of my feeling too. Is like as much as I'm bigging him up, Avatar was fine. It was like a solid like 3.5 out of 5. It's not bad at
The
all.
generous 3 for me.
Yeah,
Generous.
it's not a great movie, but it gives you enough. If you ask me, like I could never point to that and say, "Oh, it sucked." It's like no, it's just a little bit flat. It's very very pretty, but flat. Um, that came out funny. But yeah, Way of Water at this very moment, I don't have a whole lot of hype for it. But I'm sure when I watch it, and I will watch it, I'll probably enjoy it. Like I basically see no way that it can be bad. So I think that says a lot that I have that much confidence in the project. That's just like, yeah, go ahead, make your fucking cat water people. Like do whatever the fuck you want, Jim Cameron. I'll watch it. It'll probably be good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did you see the studio notes for Avatar 4's script? Did you see what the studio said to the script?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, uh I I think it was James Cameron directly said that the studio, like, I think it was for Avatar 2, the studio notes came back and they had some issues with it, and he just like basically was like, "No, I'm not going to do any of that." And then for Avatar 4, the only studio note was they said, "Holy fuck." That was the only note according to him. Apparently, that's what the headlines have been. So he's already hyping up Avatar 4. We haven't even gotten to Avatar 3 yet. And he's already hyping up 4. So I mean, the script for Avatar 4 has got to be real good.
You heard it here, folks. Holy fuck.
I guess that could be bad, actually. I mean, it could be like, holy fuck, that's bad.
It could be such a shit show that the studio's panicking.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, we need to pull the plug immediately. It's like, too late, the money's been spent, brother. Oh shit. Um yeah, great pick, Brad. Titanic is very much an aquatic adventure film. I mean, I bet you could put that on the spine as the genre, and people would be like, "Yeah, that's accurate." But I'm actually really shocked. That seems to be a thing with his filmography. Uh, Either lack of 4K or just lack of disc. Because True Lies at this point, that's a running gag, correct? It just
Yeah.
has yet to receive an HD physical release.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, he's just, I don't know if he's just got his hands in too many pies right now, but he's the type of director that would, personally want to get in there and like do a horrendous transfer like with T2. So he's just waiting until he's got some free time. But they did say that The Abyss and what was the other one? I thought it was two. Oh, maybe it was Avatar. It was the first Avatar. Are supposed to be getting 4Ks in early 2023.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I don't know what the official source is on that, but I've been seeing it spread amongst the Blu-ray rags. So you can look forward to that.
The Blu-ray dirt sheets for
I mean,
using wrestling terminology.
I'll say Dawn of the Discs. Dawn of the Discs. I'll name drop them. Dawn of the Discs.
There we go.
That's where I get all my breaking. Sometimes they get some scoops that are not supposed to be. They'll leak some stuff that's not supposed to be out there, but they do it. They don't give a fuck.
Okay, folks, you heard it here. Dawn of the Discs. They don't give a fuck.
They don't.
Okay. Well, I suppose the ball is to me. So
I mean, for your picks, man. I'm ready to be Franklin D. Roosevelt, who is the U.S. president with the most vetoes in history.
Oh, trivia facts from the Brad Man. Well,
Just
yeah,
look it up.
actually, you would be well versed in the world of trivia. I just understood that reference.
Well, yeah, I just looked it up, but it makes sense because he did serve the longest. So I guess it makes it. Yeah. But anyway.
Okay, so I'm gonna serve you up one that requires no veto, requires no lawyering. This very similar to your first pick. This is not one that has any nuance or finesse required. This is very much an aquatic adventure film. So this is an easy one. And also, it's a 90s film, which is partially why I guess I'm picking it to follow up on Brad's Titanic, which uh, I believe, based on your reversed webcam footage, it looks like Sinatit, the motion picture, because the text is
Oh.
reversed, Brad. It's Sinatit. What the hell is that? Okay, so I have here, and who directed this? Nobody anybody knows. Maybe you can look them up while I'm rambling here. So I have here a television movie, a two-disc, two-part television film by the name of The Beast.
Mm.
Peter Benchley's The Beast. So this is Peter Benchley, author of Jaws, and also author of The Beast. And also there was another television film that you can get on Blu-ray called Creature, starring Craig T. Nelson, that also had the Peter Benchley name slapped on it. I have to imagine a lot of Peter Benchley projects got greenlit for TV movies in the 90s because of Shark Week. And also just the proliferation of like cable services just spamming Jaws throughout my entire childhood. So I'm guessing that's what caused projects like this to gain ground and get financed and whatnot. But anyway, this stars William Peterson from Manhunter and that one CSI show or whatever. And Larry Drake also is in this. Dr. Giggles himself, Larry Drake, is in The Beast. Yeah, this is a two-part film. It's a TV movie, so it's very much not edited for television, but it's very tame in terms of violence and whatnot. But in case you couldn't tell from this horrendous Photoshop job, I don't know if you can make that out, Brad, but this is one of the ugliest fucking covers I have on my shelf, and that is saying a lot. Because I own a lot of schlock. I own a lot of shit movies. This is
Yeah.
not a terrible fucking movie, but wow. Just wow, that is incredibly bad. But if you couldn't tell from the cover, to anybody who's just listening and not watching, hopefully the stream is working, by the way. This is a movie about a giant squid attacking a small town, a small coastal town. So it's very similar to Jaws, although this one pulls a Gorgo or a Jaws 3 on us by having multiple squids. There's a baby squid and a mama squid. And the first half is, I'm sure glad we took care of that giant squid. Oh no, it was just the baby squid. And part two is we got to deal with mama squid,
That's pretty
who is of
good.
course bigger. It's going by Star Wars and Independence Day legacy sequel logic, where it's like, well, we gotta do the same thing, but it has to be bigger. That means it's better, right? If it's bigger. It's like, oh god. Now that I think about it, Jeff Goldblum has done that no less than twice in the same decade, I believe, with Independence Day and Jurassic World, where they did the same fucking, oh, it's the same thing, but it's bigger.
Yeah.
Like,
Pretty much, yeah.
that is one of the most cringe fucking things I've seen in blockbuster cinema as of late. Is even just watching Han Solo talk about Starkiller Base and just mutter under his breath, "Oh, it's bigger." It's like, why does it have to be bigger? It's like, oh, I think
Yeah.
that was just like candid audio of Harrison Ford muttering about having just read the script. But anyway, The Beast is a movie that, despite its horrible cover, when it aired on television, my dad recorded this on two separate tapes. Funny enough, we lost the first tape,
Mm.
so I ended up watching the second half of The Beast over and over and over and over again. It was like neck and neck with Speed. For movies I watched most in the 90s. And I'm sure my brother hates my guts for it, for monopolizing the TV and the VCR with endless rewatches of half of a giant squid movie. um, but yeah, this movie's very near and dear to my heart. It's very, very cozy. It's nothing magnificent by any means. Some of the special effects are literally just a rubber squid toy going on a plastic submersible model or something. Really horrendous special effects for the most part. Not very violent, unfortunately. It does have a body count, though. It does have a couple of good attack sequences for like a young like a young viewer like myself at the time, like there's some savagery where like they point out that the giant squid's suckers have hooks in them. So not only does it
Okay.
like latch onto you like a suction cup, it also has like an actual bony appendage that comes through it, like a Deinonychus or a Velociraptor
Yeah.
toe. And we do get a couple of shots of people getting those like in them, which for a television movie, it's pretty savage. Um, but most of the violence is implied and whatnot, and it's very paint by numbers. It's very by the book. It's a boilerplate eat 'em up, which is a genre term that Brad has coined in our discussions over the past few years. But yeah, I like this movie. It's not great, but a lot of it takes place on the high seas, in fishing boats, and also at a coastal town. So it has that Amity vibe from, like, say, Jaws. Same author, makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the majority of the action does take place on the ocean, on like probably sound stages with just like people like waving saws and stuff to make thunder noises and like
Mhm.
throwing buckets at Larry Drake. Pretty sure he had a lousy time on the set of this one because he is fucking wet and cold
Yeah.
throughout most of this movie, and he's also a fucking drunk throughout the whole movie. Which, now that I mention that, he was probably having a lot of fun doing that. Maybe he did some of that method acting shit. Who knows?
Maybe.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's Peter Benchley's The Beast, directed by Jeff Bleckner. To
I
anybody who
did
gives a
look
shit.
up the Blackster.
The Bleckman.
Yeah, I did look him up. Pretty much all TV he's done. A lot of TV movies. He did direct the Flowers for Algernon TV movie with Matthew Modine, and also the Rear Window remake TV movie with Christopher Reeves. And most
I didn't know that
notably,
existed, but
yeah, oh
was that
yeah,
post riding accident?
I would assume that would explain why, he is, stuck at home, I would guess.
I was
Like
about to
that.
say that's actually a really good way to utilize your Christopher Reeve, because he's always been a fantastic actor, like even outside of the Superman stuff. So that, like, if
Yeah.
that was the case, that's kind of cool.
Looks, yeah, based on images, looks like, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
cool.
a Christopher Reeves historian, but 1998
Yeah,
is when the
I'm
movie came
pretty
out.
sure that was post.
And then most notably, he did also direct one episode of Welcome Back, Cotter. So there you go.
Hey, Mr. Carter.
But no, I would really like to watch The Beast. I think I would have fun with it.
Yeah, as I said, Brad coined the term "eat 'em up." If you're not familiar, dear listener or viewer, hopefully viewer, an eat 'em up is essentially an animal attack movie. There's many movies that fit into this genre. Fortunately, it's a personal favorite of, I guess, both of ours. I was raised on the shit. I love me some animal attack movies. Some of the best
Mhm.
shit out there. And The Beast is most certainly that template. Yeah, I think you would like this. Like for me, it gets extra bonus points because of the '90s nostalgia factor. That's something that, as I'm getting older, like, I hate to say it, but like it does actually it does actually carry some weight. Like, it holds value to me. Is just seeing the world as I actually remember it, like in particular fashion and
Mhm.
hair, where it's just like, holy shit, people were butt fucking ugly when I was young. I was like, wow. like going back and watching like Seinfeld season 1 or something, it's like, yikes, man, the color combinations and the shoulder pads. My god, the shoulder pads. But this one's a little bit later into the 90s, so it doesn't have as much of that. But you know, William Peterson is an engaging screen presence. I didn't watch him in what is probably these days his most noteworthy role, like his long tenure on television and whatnot. But Manhunter, like, you can see he's got chops. He's up to the task to carry a movie, and he most certainly does in The Beast. And it has a nice rhythm to it. Like, it is overlong because it is a two-parter for sure. Like, that is probably its biggest sin, is that it's overlong. But fortunately, it knows how to pace things out just so, where it's like, we're farting around on the shore, but 10 minutes from now, after the commercial break, after the fade to black on the DVD, because they have that shit, like, you'll be, subject to more squid attack footage or something. So you're never bored for too long. But yeah, this is one that I probably could never get the girlfriend to watch. Not like Titanic, but it's one that, like, even just looking at it, even looking at that shitty fucking cover, this shitty fucking cover, I do actually kind of want to go back and rewatch it. So yeah, that was my pick, Brad.
Now, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, and we've probably already covered this a little bit. Don't want to get too in the seaweeds here, if you know what I'm saying. So I think you're probably going to disagree with me on this, and that's fine. You can be wrong. That's fine. I mean,
you can be wrong on your own
life.
show.
Now, I don't know about you. This you might be way wrong here, but I separate my TV out from my movies. So would this go in TV or would it go in movies? Because on IMDb, this says TV miniseries because it did air in 2 parts.
Yeah, I would classify this as a TV. Oh, wait. Oh, technicality, Brad. Technicality. With almost 80 minutes of restored scenes previously edited from earlier releases, this is the original version. So I think this is a version unique to physical media. Okay. Probably not like the broadcast version. But to answer your question more directly, because I'm pussyfooting around it. I do think of it as a TV movie because it was aired in 2 parts, and that's how I remember it, and how I most often watched it. But I don't separate, mostly because I have very little TV, and also it's on DVD, which I'm currently in the process of consolidating and liquidating. Yeah. So it's over with those, the ones all the way back there that we don't talk about as much because it makes Brad gag whenever I trot one of these tall boxes out.
I should clarify though that if it was a TV movie, I'd be fine with putting it in movies. If it's a TV movie, that's cool. I wouldn't put it in TV, but TV miniseries, I would put it in TV.
Well, I didn't expect this aspect of rules lawyering, but it's 2 parts. Exactly 2 parts. Does that denote a series, Brad? Or is that a 2-part film?
I would consider that. I think that would qualify as a mini series.
Episode 1 and episode 2 is a series.
For example, I have Stephen King's It in television because it is 2 parts. I believe IMDb lists it as a mini series. I would not log it on Letterboxd, but Duel, Stephen King's Duel, which I believe that was a TV movie. That I would put that in the movies. I wouldn't put that in TV.
Okay, well, by that logic,
did I say Stephen King's Duel? Steven Spielberg's Duel, but anyway.
Steven Spielberg, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, I will allow that. That definition makes sense to me. So officially, The Beast is a 2-part mini series. Therefore, it is television. Therefore, if I do rewatch it and I log it, you have the go ahead to wag your finger and say you did it wrong, Trevor. That's not a movie.
I will say those 2-part miniseries, if I'm gonna be lenient on anything, I wouldn't judge you too much for that because I want to log Stephen King's It and Salem's Lot. I want to log those, but I can't break that rule. It's once you do that, it's a slippery slope. So I can't do it, even though I want to. I can't personally do it.
We were living in a society the last time I checked. Principles, laws. We need to hold fast to these things. Otherwise, like you say, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
You don't want to go down that road. Serious matters in the world of collecting physical media and logging shit on Letterboxd.
That's all I think about.
Same here, bud. That's why we do this show. Anyway, Brad, that was my pick. Ball is to you, sir. Beach ball is to you, sir. What is your next aquatic adventure? Yeah, I'm starting to get some of that Brad shit going. Well, enjoy, dear listener.
I'll try and go stay in a little more fringe. I don't think it's that I think this is a pretty clear aquatic adventure, but I'm gonna go something that's not as clear cut. So maybe there'll be a little back and forth. I don't know. But this movie is one that I just rewatched not too long ago. Just rewatched it for the first time on 4K, and that is Lucio Fulci's Zombie, aka Zombie 2, aka Zombie Flesh Eaters, which Blue Underground put out in a beautiful release. I did not dig into any of the features here, but the transfer is incredible. So the reason I would include this as an aquatic adventure, first of all, it does end up taking place mainly on an island, like in the Caribbean. So there's a lot of beach sequences. There's a lot of sequences in them on a boat getting to the island. There is the infamous zombie versus shark fight, which is, probably the most famous part of the movie. And it is incredible. And it is it's as wet as you can get. The actor is completely submerged. You can't get any wetter than that. And if that wasn't enough, the opening sequence takes place on, is it the Hudson River? I can't remember. It's one of the New York City rivers. Is it the Hudson? I can't remember. But
Sure, we'll
what's
go
the
with
one that's
that.
really everyone says is really gross?
I mean, that sounds like the Hudson to me,
Is
but
it the Hudson?
I
Okay.
I'm from the West Coast, Brad. I need not concern myself with the
Yeah.
matters of those New Yorkers.
Well, I believe it's on the Hudson River. And it's a boat, an abandoned boat is floating in the river, and the Coast Guard pulls up onto the boat, and it's empty, except they end up finding that the only thing on it is a zombie, and they get in a little tussle with the zombie, and at some point the zombie falls into the water. And then later on, our main character is an investigative reporter. They go down to the docks. They go onto the boat, and you can hear the flow of the water. So there's a lot of water in this thing. I mean, I said this is a little less clear cut, but there's a lot of water in this thing. I think it qualifies as an aquatic adventure. What say you, Trevor?
All out.
Woo! All right, all right, all right. Thank goodness.
Yeah, the infamous zombie versus shark action sequence. I mean, you covered all your bases by noting that it's not just that one scene that even people who haven't seen the movie will have known if they're up on their horror cinema or their Fulci cinema. Um, yeah, I actually haven't seen that one, but I know it by reputation, and of course, I've at the very least seen the zombie versus shark sequence. But on the whole, what's your general assessment of Zombie by Lucio Fulci?
I like it a lot. I mean, it's the gore and the kills with pretty much every Fulci movie. That's the highlight. In this one, I feel like even less than some of his other works, like the story and the characters, like the plot, there's really not anything there. It's really just, tying together these, memorable deaths and great, incredible practical effects and gore. But I think this movie, more than maybe a lot of his others, has some of his best stuff, including the zombie versus shark sequence. There's the infamous, which I don't know if you've seen or heard about, but there's a famous sequence involving an eye, where a woman gets slowly pulled. The zombie grabs her through a door, breaks the wood, and slowly grabs her head and pulls her closer and closer to the broken splinters of the door, and she eventually gets gouged in the eye. So yeah, lot of cool stuff. I like the atmosphere in this. I don't love Lucio Fulci, but I really respect his work and like the guy, and just the fact that he's willing to kind of just be like a sleazy genre director. Like, he's not trying to hide anything. He's not trying to class it up. I mean, even the zombie versus shark thing, everyone has heard about it and maybe seen the clips on YouTube. But what you probably haven't seen, because YouTube won't let you see it, is that for 5 minutes before the zombie versus shark scene, one of our main characters gets completely nude and goes scuba diving. There's nude scuba diving in here. So there's even more water, and there's even more sleaze for you. Listen, this Lucio Fulci, he loves nudity and gore. That's what he loves. And if you watch a Lucio Fulci movie, you're going to get more than enough of both of those. And he also apparently loves water, because there's a lot of it in this one. So this guy loves nudity, gore, and water. Sounds like my kind of guy. Love him.
Yeah, actually, folks at home, you likely wouldn't be aware of this, but this is actually like part of the reason why Brad and I are doing this subject is not just the promotional synergy of Avatar: The Way of Water coming out very soon, but also just the fact that like Brad especially, but me also, we both seem to have this thing about like water in movies, like movies involving the water or taking place on the water are just something we're both drawn to. Brad has said this numerous times on his own show, the Cinema Speak
Mm-hmm.
podcast. I don't cite it publicly as often, but it is, privately true. Like it's also
Yeah.
something that I'm drawn to as well. Um, so yeah, I can see why that aspect of Fulci's game would appeal to you in particular. But yeah, what are some of his other classics, like off the top of your head, like just two or three of them, because I'm getting my wires crossed when it comes to other Italian horror directors, like
Mm-hmm.
gorehounds of his contemporaries and whatnot. I'm trying to pinpoint exactly what his flavor is.
His most famous is probably The Beyond.
Ah,
Um, and that's part of his Gates of Hell trilogy, which is City
City
of
of
the
the
Living
Living Dead.
Dead.
Yeah.
Yo, you got it, bud. And then also House by the Cemetery.
Ah,
Those
okay.
three.
Okay,
I
so
would
I've seen most of those. House
okay.
by the Cemetery, I think, is the only one of those I haven't.
It's the weakest of that trilogy, I would say.
Nice.
It's not like, it's still worth watching, but I would say The Beyond is probably my favorite of his. I think it's got great gore. I think the atmosphere is the best in that. Um and I'd say it's probably his strongest work, but I would put Zombie as a close second just because the moments that are memorable are really great. Um Also, the final shot of the zombies crossing, I don't know what bridge it is, and you probably won't know either. Brooklyn Bridge, I don't know. One of the bridges in New York, but the zombies walking across the Brooklyn Bridge that's a pretty awesome final
Some
shot.
fucking bridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over there.
Yep. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Blue Underground, they've been doing a real great job with their 4Ks. They also released House by the Cemetery on 4K. Um and some other ones as well. But I know City of the Living Dead, that one is going to be released by Cauldron Films. And I think their pre-order for that goes up on, it might be this Friday or next Friday, I don't know. Um Unfortunate that I just rewatched that, so I don't really have any desire to rewatch it anytime soon, but the FOMO might hit me, and I might, because it is limited to, like, 3,000 units or something, so we'll see, but anyway,
Yikes. That's
yeah.
very limited. And by the way, folks at home who are only listening and not watching, Zombie backwards is Abe Maz. Abe Maz, the motion picture directed by Lucio Fulci. I'm not going to try to say that backwards, but Abe Maz. Um, yeah, that's one that I'd like to watch because there was a phase in my life where I frequented Stomp Tokyo and badmovies.org and even a little bit of Bloody Disgusting. So basically, his entire filmography, like back then, like when I was in high school and stuff, I was aware of most of it, but I very seldom actually watched it. So I know like a lot of the more famous sequences, like the eye gouge sequence. He seems to have a thing for eye trauma. I
Yeah.
know that's an aspect of his game that's noteworthy.
Mhm.
But I know about that. I know about the zombie shark fight and stuff. And I've seen a couple of his other movies. The Beyond I remember being a lot of fun. Like that's just like a fucking grab bag of awesome weirdness and gore. Like
Mhm.
don't ask it to make a lick of fucking sense, but just hang out for the vibe and the visuals. And actually, that's a funny thing that I think you and I have in common. It's very very difficult for the girlfriend to digest is vibe movies and like visual like aesthetic driven films where it's just like I don't need this thing to make any sort of sense. It has an internal logic that I'm pretty sure that the people making it knew what it all meant or what it was supposed to mean, but I don't think they had any clue of how to convey it to anyone who wasn't themselves, which is a failing on their part. Um, but for me, it's like if the stars align just right and a movie only gives me that, and sometimes it just works, man. Like
Hmm.
sometimes it just feels right, and if it's nice enough to look at and nice enough to listen to, sometimes that's all I need.
Yeah.
um, but that seems to be a thing with a lot of his contemporaries as well. It's just like sometimes it's a little, the logic is a little iffy, but if you hang around for the ride, you'll probably get a good experience out of it as long as you're, you know, aware of what you're paying for up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
The
yeah, nice
plot is
pick, Brad.
secondary. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
plot is secondary a lot of times with movies like that. And for me, if the chemistry mixes up just right, it's very worthwhile. Some of my favorite shit is like that.
Oh yeah.
Um, oh yeah. But yeah, nice pick, Brad. Blue
Thank
Underground
you.
is not a distributor I have any discs from as of yet. But who knows? Maybe one of these days I'll find like a pick of theirs that speaks to me. But for now, I don't have any of their stuff. But good disc. You like it?
Yeah, yeah, it looked great. I mean, it goes perfectly with the theme of this month. Blue underground, blue water, underwater. They should change their name to Blue Underwater and not underground. But, just a great group of guys and gals that work there. We love them at Blue Underground.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I understand, they're a pretty small operation, but damn, they were very much ahead of the 4K curve
Yeah.
in terms of like volume of releases. Like they were one of the first indie publishers I can recall, like really like kind of serving as the tip of the spear for that sort of movement. So good on them for being ahead. But yeah, excellent pick, Brad. Um, okay, so I for my pick here. I'm going to flex my hosting privilege here, and Brad is always welcome to do this. He very seldom practices this, but the Tales from the Shelf has very few hard and fast rules, and you'll find that if there are any, I will readily break them to suit my own needs. So what I'm going to do here is just serve up three picks in one go because they're all from the same franchise. And it's just easier this way. So I have here three films from probably the most important franchise to me as a human being. First film franchise I probably have any memories of having watched. I have on Blu-ray and 4K. I have Godzilla 1984, aka The Return of Godzilla. This is the Japanese version, not Godzilla 1985, which is the American edition that has additional sequences with a lot of Dr. Pepper advertising embedded in the Pentagon, in the War Room sequences. This is from Kraken Releasing, who are very small, but they put out a lot of shit that speaks directly to me. So I won't be surprised if I end up owning quite a lot of their catalog at some point in my life. I also have from director Hideaki Anno, Shin Gojira on Blu-ray, and god damn, that digital HD just like sticker is horrendous to look at. It kind of like breaks up the cover really badly.
Yeah, you got
Uh,
to try and get that out of there, bud.
I got some goo gone. I got some goo gone. I'll work on
Yep.
that. That's my project for tonight. And then last one on 4K, I have Godzilla versus Kong, which is, I guess, the most recent Godzilla project. Although that Netflix series, the animated series, might be the most recent technically. But um, yeah, this is on 4K. So Godzilla is, of course, a monster that is born from nuclear fire, or at least awakened by it, depending on your interpretation. But he's also a beast. He's like an amphibious creature, and his origins are the sea. Like generally, he like the beginning and end of most Godzilla stories begins in the ocean with him emerging, and ends with him receding into the depths. If you ask me, that's like one of the cooler parts of Godzilla 2014, the American one, is the last shot. I
Oh
was just
yeah.
like, wow, he got it. Like he gets it, man. Like just the shot of his fins just going into the ocean, then snap to black. It's like, yeah, that's the end of the story. The whole reason we showed up is gone. Like he went home. That's it. There's no more. I was like, wow, that's incredible. He got it. That's a really amazing movie in a lot of ways. I don't think people give it enough credit because there's some shit going on behind the scenes. Like there's some subtlety to that story that I think is missed by a lot of people in the same way that a lot of people misunderstood the Northmen. A lot of people got the wrong message from a lot of the wrong people got the wrong message from that fucking movie. And
Yeah.
it's kind of baffling to me. It's like, did you watch the fucking movie? Oh, you did. And you still that's what you got. Okay. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
um these three movies, I'll just hurry my way through them because there's three of them. So Godzilla 1984. This is, I don't know if this is anyone's favorite Godzilla movie. I like it quite a lot. From a production value standpoint, this movie was made in response to the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong movie from the 1970s. Basically, Toho got the idea that it's like, Godzilla's been retired since 1975. That King Kong movie made a big splash. It's like, we should throw some money at, resurrecting our big guy for his 30th anniversary. So they did so by bringing him back as a villain. He had not often been framed as a villain between 1954 and 1984. Like his first appearance, yes, he was a villain, and then occasionally after that, like in Mothra versus Godzilla, he'd be he was more of a bully or an asshole than an actual out and out villain. But in this one, he like the musical accompaniment for him in this by Reijiro Koroku, I think is the composer's name. The score for this movie, Brad, look it up, please. Please, like at the very least, the main title theme. It's like the theme music of a fucking demon. Like in the words of Jason Lee, I'm a fucking demon. Like Godzilla's a fucking demon in this. If you like listen to the musical accompaniment. But in terms of water incorporated into the story, the opening takes place on a fishing boat wherein Godzilla emerges in front of the boat and causes a nuclear storm that like whips the ship up into a frenzy and like kills most of the crew. There's a giant sea louse, a giant radioactive sea louse that attacks the crew members, and like there's a bunch of mummified corpses in this one. This one's actually kind of violent,
Yeah.
shockingly so. And then there's probably the best submarine attack sequence in any Godzilla movie, where a USSR, a Russian submarine, is attacked by Godzilla, and it's very Hunt for Red October, very very Das Boot, like very traditional submarine drama, but with the benefit
Mm.
of everybody speaking Russian with subtitles and very, I don't know, po-faced performances from all around. But it's like a dreadful sequence where Godzilla wrecks a nuclear submarine. And then finally, when Godzilla first shows up in Tokyo, there's this really awesome shot where like the entirety of like the Japanese like ground military force, like all of their tanks, are just lined up on the shore, and they throw everything they got at him, and in just like one sweeping motion, just like one nuclear death breath, just one single shot, the entirety of the ground force is gone. And it's just like, holy shit. Like that's not anything we'd seen in a Godzilla movie before, but it's
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty spectacular. They spared no expense with the special effects in that one. I've pointed out before, but it's like the first time they really attempted to nail the scale of things. And Tokyo in the 1980s, the skyscrapers in that city, which was rebuilt with modern technology, were hundreds of meters tall. Godzilla's like, he started out in like 55 meters tall and 54, and in this one I think they bumped him up to 80. So he's like a third the size of a lot of the buildings on the set. And it's really incredible to actually see the scale miniatures done up to look like that. It's very seldom been done in Godzilla films. So that's like probably the first time they actually went to the trouble to do that. Shin Gojira, really big deal. Incredible movie. Very very funny at times, but also kind of spooky at times. I call this bureaucracy Godzilla. Because it's mostly about political bureaucracy and the troubles that come with it. But I've been trying to get the girlfriend to watch this forever, but I think she's scared that it'll upset her because of that. But a lot of the visuals in the opening sequence of this movie parallel that of the Fukushima disaster and the tsunami and stuff that came through. So like they're deliberately referencing an actual disaster that befell the Japanese like in their contemporary history. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very vital to the plot and very, very, very vital to the allegory of a lot of the narrative in here. Uh, and lastly, Godzilla versus Kong. If you look at the international posters for this movie, like China in particular, put the middle action sequence on the poster. Basically, it's Godzilla and King Kong grappling with each other underwater, which actually happens in the movie. It's not false advertising, but it happens in the middle of the movie, not the finale. Um, but the staging of that action sequence I actually found to be very engaging, especially considering like they really took advantage of the tools that they had at their disposal, because a big problem that comes with traditional suitmation with a guy in a rubber Godzilla suit is that they're inflexible and not very agile. Even when they tried to scale it back to some degree, it's like he still can't move very well. Like, good luck asking him to break out into a trot, let alone trying to run. Um, so like whenever Godzilla would engage in like sea battles or anything in suitmation movies, it would usually be him from the waist up, because the guy was hot and or was afraid of drowning, so he wouldn't be wearing the lower half of the costume. And it would usually just be him like doing this and breathing fire, just like barfing laser beams at each other,
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't do any actual choreography of any complexity. So to do it all in CGI, it's like, okay, now we have two animals that can move like you'd expect them to. And it's like, well, what can we do here? It's like, well, we can have King Kong do some Evangelion shit and jump back and forth between aircraft carriers, and we can have this really pitched battle where it's like, okay, this one guy is adept at being in the water and the other guy not so much. And it's like, what can we do with this? It's like, well, we can have them tie up and him try to drown him or something. I thought it was a very well storyboarded and executed action sequence. In otherwise kind of uneven film, it was a standout moment. But anyway, that was a bunch of Godzilla shit. I've been talking your ear off, Brad. I should probably invite you into the conversation.
No, I mean you're definitely the expert when it comes to the Godzilla franchise. So I'm the guy to just let you go off on that. But I think I gotta give you the approval on all those. I mean, if there was one that I would veto, it would be Godzilla versus Kong, but I'm not gonna, because it does have that sequence in the middle. And I don't know if honestly, I don't know if that would have been enough. I don't know if that would have been enough. But the final sequence, it is raining very heavily. So that rain is gonna fill your cup up just enough to get you to the line, I think. I think that's just enough to get you there, in my opinion.
Thank God.
And you didn't even plead that case. You're lucky I'm over here giving you that ammo.
Yeah, that was very generous of you, Brad. Thank you. Like, you spared me,
Yeah.
kind sir.
But I would like to watch Godzilla '84. You're kind of selling me on it. It sounds like something I would like quite a bit. I do really like Shin Godzilla also. I've seen it twice now, and but '84 sounds pretty good. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, even if you don't end up watching it, like I said, try listening to some of the score for it, because it's really incredible stuff. I don't know very much else that the guy has done. Actually, I have a CD of his. It's it's the Guyver Image album. So if I say the word Guyver, does that mean anything to you?
No, unless you're putting Mick in front of it and we're solving, building something out of household objects.
MacGyver, the thing that Patty and Selma are always trying to watch. Uh, Guyver or Gaiba. I actually have worn the shirt a few times on the show. It's a manga and an anime from the late '80s. It's very similar to like Kamen Rider or Skullman or something. But anyway, you don't know what I'm talking about. They made a couple of live action movies of it here in the States, though. One of which is famous, or infamous rather, for having the Guyver mask split down the middle with Mark Hamill's face on the other side of it,
Hmm.
and he's not the Guyver in the movie. Like, he never actually wears the costume. It's just he was the biggest name in the cast, so they put
Yeah.
him big as life and twice as ugly on the cover. I don't exactly remember where I'm going with this, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about Guyver.
Hey, that's all right, man. This is your floor to talk about whatever you want.
Oh, that's right. So the composer. So
Mm,
there's a CD that I remember purchasing, and I ordered it from overseas. It's called the Guyver Image Album, and what it was, and this is a curious thing that I don't think we would do in this country. Maybe they would. Um, it's a it's an entire album comprised of pieces of music uh, created created to be associated with a thing that didn't have musical accompaniment. So basically, people who read the comic and people who read the comic made music that they thought would go well with the comic.
okay.
And some of the music is directly lifted from the animated adaptation of the comic, but a lot of it is original composition that was never utilized anywhere. It was just like this sound goes with these images and this story. So it's a
Hmm.
really curious idea where it's just like a bunch of creative people got together and who were fans of the thing or something and threw together some music they thought would go well with the story, and a lot of it does. But he composed the score of the animated version, and a lot of his tracks are on that album that I have. He has a really unique sound. I can't I don't have the vocabulary to explain it, but good composer. I like him. Uh,
Yeah. I'll
okay,
have to take a
well,
listen to some of those tracks.
yeah, at the very least, listen to the opening title for Godzilla 1984 because he's a fucking demon, Brad. Okay, so that's enough Godzilla talk. I promise you, that's all the Godzilla that will come up this session. But ball is to you, sir. What is your next aquatic adventure?
Oh, well, let's go with this one, I guess. Why not? Let's go back a few years cuz I guess Zombie that was 79. So I guess I've gone back a little bit. Let's go back even further and talk about a movie that I watched when I was young. It's probably on Turner Classic Movies. Maybe it was on AMC. I don't know where I watched it, but it is definitely. I don't even think I need to plead my case. It is definitely a water movie. It is an aquatic adventure. It is. It's even got a body of water right in the title. It's Creature from the Black Lagoon. Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I don't know if I'd say I think it's like the best Universal monster movie, but it's probably the one that is my favorite just because I like water. I like the setup of the setup of like an expedition going into the heart of the jungle kind of thing and discovering this creature that's in there. And obviously there's some not very subtle subtext of them going into his home and him being treated as the monster by them, even though they're the ones invading. But I think it works pretty well. The Universal monster films, they're fun. They don't overstay their welcome. They're all fairly short. Like this is an hour 20 minutes, and that's one of the longer Universal monster films. But there's some great underwater sequences, underwater photography. That's pretty iconic. Like the creature swimming underneath her, an amazing shot. And I like the design of the creature. I think even though its lips in this cover are a little more pronounced, I mean, the movie's in black and white, so maybe they are that red. I guess I've never seen the actual suit in color, but I wouldn't. I based on the black and white, I do not picture that red of lips. I mean, this looks like the creature's ready for a night on the town. But I do really like the design of the creature, and I think it is fairly creepy. Like I'm sure back in the day, obviously, it probably scared the bejesus out of people. But even watching it now, especially with the music in the film, it is shot just like shockingly like weird and ugly looking, for lack of a better term. But no, I really enjoy Creature from the Black Lagoon. This Blu-ray does have the 3D version. I've never watched it in 3D. I don't have a 3D television, but yeah, I believe it was released theatrically in 3D. I think that was the craze at the time. But yeah, it's a classic monster flick. What more is there to say?
Oh yeah, no, it's kind of funny. I told you there would be no more Godzilla, but please check this for me, Brad. I want to say that came out the same year as Godzilla.
Oh, it's
54.
got to be close. It's got to be close. Let me see if I can find it on here. Yeah, it looks like 54. Yep,
Oh yeah, I know my
you
shit.
got it.
So yeah, the Gill Man, Universal's arguably last, I guess, and most unappreciated or underappreciated monster, but
Hmm.
also probably my favorite, honestly, just because, again, I like water. I'm drawn to the water, monsters that come from the water in particular. Some of my favorite shit. Those were the movies I wanted to make when I was a kid. It was basically Jaws, like God knows how many other kids. But yeah, the Gill Man, for whatever the fuck reason, Universal just hates that guy. They hate that Gill Man because they don't give him any love. Like, we got a Benicio del Toro headlined Wolfman that went through like 3 directors and was a complete total fucking shit show. It had some good gore, I will give it that, and some decent transformation sequences and whatnot. But they threw money at that. They threw money at Dracula Untold. They've thrown money at Van Helsing and countless Frankenstein movies, including one that I don't think anybody saw. That was a Daniel Radcliffe one where he
Oh
plays.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I didn't see it. I don't know anybody who has. Have you, Brad?
No, I have not.
Yeah, but they throw all this love at all those things. We even got an Invisible Man, 2 of them in the form of Hollow Man and the Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss. Ain't no Gill Man out there. We don't get no Gill Man for whatever the fuck reason. Universal just hates that Gill Man, and it's really a shame because I love the Gill Man. I think it's a fantastic design. I mean, I guess we got The Shape of Water, but it seemed like they were going out of their way to like not not like put a hat on that, like it's not officially, a creature from the Black Lagoon movie, even though
Yeah.
the iconography, the image of it, the aesthetic is so close. I guess that's the closest we've had. um, but yeah, I guess the Monster Squad is maybe one of the only modern-ish reimaginings we've had of that, brought to us by Stan Winston. Have you seen the Monster Squad, Brad?
I have not. Nope.
It's a fun one.
Yeah.
It's not like an out and out classic or anything. Although maybe I'm wrong on that, but it's a lot of fun. Like a Halloween time watch with your friends. It's a lot of fun. That's how I watched it most recently, and that was exactly the right setting for it. It was just with some friends on the couch, pointing and laughing at it. It has layers of depth to it that you wouldn't expect. Plus, it has that 1980s like horror vibe to it, where it's like it features a lot of kids and it puts them in legitimate danger, which is something you don't get outside of like Stranger Things and stuff these days in modern cinema. So
Mm.
that's always nice. But the Gillman suit that they built for that is very very impressive. I mean, it's Stan Winston. I think a couple of years prior to Predator, so he was doing some shit. I think it may even have been before Aliens. But yeah, I haven't seen the first Creature from the Black Lagoon since I was really little. I I don't remember it at all, really, except for something involving a cave and the underwater shot that you mentioned. Some of the underwater photography, very similar to a lot of early James Bond movies, kind of feels like we had underwater photography equipment, so we built a movie around it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it kind of feels like test footage at times, but the compositions of some of those shots, in particular the one you're talking about, legit, like really stunning stuff. Also, leading lady in that, she's great.
Hmm.
Just say, as far as the starlets of the Universal Monsters catalog, she's great. Just leave it at that. She's really
Amen.
great.
Amen.
Yeah, but I think the most recent one I saw and maybe have the most memories of is the third one. The
Okay.
Creature Walks Among Us, which,
I've never seen any of the sequels.
yeah, I don't know anything about the second one, but The Creature Walks Among Us is a weird one. Like, they go a direction with that one that is interesting to say the least, but not what you would expect, honestly. Um, but yeah, long story short, the Gill Man, underappreciated, big time. It's kind of a shock to me. That's like, man, he's so cool though. Like look at him.
Yeah, I don't know. It's surprising that I guess it's not too surprising, but that they haven't tried any sort of, modern adaptation of it. I mean, yeah, obviously Guillermo del Toro would be the perfect choice, but he probably wouldn't do that because it's, he hasn't done it, but Shape of Water is close enough that he probably wouldn't want to do that again. Um, but yeah, I could definitely see it, just being something, even if they did a modern adaptation of it, I bet you they'd just call it the Black Lagoon. It'd be produced by Blumhouse, but they could make it work. I think. I mean, keep the general plot of it, and I think they could make it scary and fun. And I like the setup. I mean, it's a setup that's been done in lots of other movies since, but it works really well.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of it. You know, probably wouldn't have the best reaction to it because they probably fuck it up somehow. But just the fact that everybody else gets how many fucking at bats. Like
Yeah.
sometimes nobody even gives a shit in the form of Frankenstein stuff. But it's like give him another shot, man. Just the people should be aware that the Gill Man's out there because the kids, I guarantee you, they don't know shit about the Gill Man, and they really ought to.
I just want to highlight quick because I went on my letterbox page and found a review that I liked for this movie. Um, it's always good to highlight some, classic letterboxed gag reviews. This review is from Joe. That's all his name is just Joe. And review for Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I think is pretty good. He said, "They came into his home. They poisoned his water. They shot him with harpoons, but they couldn't conquer his love until eventually they were able to conquer his love as well."
Succinct and also witty.
Pretty good.
I like it. No, that's a pretty good letterboxd review. I actually posted one myself for Falling for Christmas. Yeah, the girlfriend asked, like, well, actually, no, I suggested it. I was like, yeah, it's that time of year. You probably want to watch some of your stuff, right? And it's like, you probably don't want to watch my shit all the time. So we watched that. And, it wasn't great. Actually, we had a lot of fun talking shit about it. But I posted a review that she helped me draft. She approved of every word of it. So that was a fun
Yeah.
joint project on the couch.
I read the review. I enjoyed it, but I have not seen the movie, so I didn't really get the references. But I'm sure if I were to watch the Lindsay Lohan Falling for Christmas, I'm sure I would appreciate the review even more.
Yeah, that angel was crooked. It was crooked.
See, I
Just
don't know.
saying,
I don't know.
there's this big aspect of the plot hinging on this fucking angel. It's like, yeah, they're gonna hang up that angel. It's gonna be a really, really big deal. And then they put it up, and it's like, that star is crooked. Anyway, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Excellent pick, Brad. I'm actually really, really, really due for a rewatch on that one because as I just spent all this time talking up the Gill Man, I haven't seen that in probably 30 plus years. Yeah, I should refresh my memory, especially considering it's like 80 minutes long or some shit.
Okay. Never mind. I was gonna say, just to highlight the fact how much the Creature from the Black Lagoon gets overlooked. I was thinking that this hadn't gotten a 4K release. This did have a 4K. It is included in the Universal Classic Monsters Icons of Horror Volume 2. It's in Volume 2. So no standalone release, but they did give it the 4K treatment. But also, I mean, the fact that it got relegated to Volume 2, I mean, I think that speaks volumes to how Universal views it. It's B tier for them. It's the B tier.
Yeah, I mean that's the general vibe I get. But at the very least, I'm glad they included him in that box because he deserves to be part of that pantheon. He's probably the one that gets pushed aside the most often. Maybe the Mummy, but more than likely the Gill Man is the guy. Like if we gotta nick somebody from the crowd, he's gonna get benched, man. It's like, I'm sorry, Gill Man, we don't have room on the bus. like Frank's got to put his feet up, man. Like He's got a thing, you know, sciatica.
Yeah.
Gilman's just like burble burble, which means fuck you in Gill speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so Creature from the Black Lagoon. You know what, Brad? I think we're about due for something a little different.
Okay.
So I'm gonna, uh, yeah, I'm gonna throw some shit at you, and I'm gonna give you a three for again because I can do that. It's my shoe. Okay, so I have three movies that are all of a genre not at all related to eat 'em ups, or monster movies for that matter. Uh, and two of these are on 4K, and one of these is a Korean Blu-ray extended edition. And actually, I have no idea how to navigate the menus to make sure that I was ever watching the extended edition. I should probably
Hmm.
give that another look.
Yeah.
So anyway, to dispel the mystery, I have here, and I think Well Go put out a domestic DVD, Blu-ray of this in recent years, but this version that I have here in my hands, I bought prior to that um, via Korea. So I have here Northern Limit Line, which is not really a war movie, but verging on it. It involves armed conflict between militaries of two nations, so military action, not necessarily a war, but close enough. And then I have two out and out war movies. Funny enough, both from the same war, but from different angles of it. So I have Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan on 4K. And then Christopher Nolinsky's Dunkirk, which is, of course, from the British and German side of the conflict rather than the American, or, no, I mean, it was an international operation. It wasn't just our boys on the beach,
Hmm.
on Omaha Beach and whatnot. Anyway, all three of these movies involve armed conflict involving military forces and whatnot, and they also involve the water. Just to run through things pretty quickly, Northern Limit Line is kind of an interesting movie from a political standpoint. I find stuff like this interesting because I have an American perspective on things. I am not Korean, nor do I know a whole lot about Korean politics or military action. But this actually takes place in, I think, 2002 or 2001, and it's based on a real life incident wherein North and South Korean sailors shot at each other, and it wasn't war, but it was vessels doing battle with each other, and it was for completely stupid fucking reasons. Not that many people died, but enough people died that people mourned them, and the government was very pissed. Um, but it's just a really fascinating thing that's like this happened very recently, and also funny enough, the timing of it, the backdrop of it is it happened during the World Cup, which is kind of timely.
Yeah.
But the way the narrative is portrayed is like it's cutting back and forth between like Korea being in the World Cup and apparently doing decently. I don't know how often that's the case for them, um, but uh, but yeah, it's this actual real life incident in the early 2000s where North and South shot at each other on the high seas. Um, and then we have, of course, Saving Private Ryan, which has the Omaha Beach landing sequence, the first 20, 15 minutes of the movie or so. Uh, I don't need to say a whole lot other than they arrive via boats, and it's quite wet and bloody, and it's astounding piece of cinema. And then Dunkirk, which I don't know how you feel about this movie, Brad, but I watched this movie not in the theater. Christopher Nolan's probably like, that motherfucker. He's
Watch it
probably.
on an iPhone.
I didn't watch it while I was taking a shit, Brad. Well, I
All
may
right.
have taken a shit with the door open. I will give you that. But it was playing on a television. God
Okay.
damn it. It's playing on a TV in my home. Again, Christopher Nolan would probably be very upset. But Dunkirk, it's very much a Christopher Nolan movie. It holds a lot of his hallmarks. In particular, I've noticed a lot of things about him that are really fascinating to me. I don't know if I like them, but I like discovering people's tendencies. It's just a thing that I enjoy is uh, dissecting like the perspective of the person presenting the product to me. So in Nolan's case, I don't think anyone could argue that he has a fascination with time. And this movie very much leans heavily into that and utilizing that as a tool to the narrative, like to take a different approach to how the story is told. Um, but also, I've noticed he has an aversion to violence, and like he has violence in his movies. Like don't get me wrong. Like a lot of his movies have action, a lot of his movies have violence, but it's never explicit. Like he seems to have an aversion to gore and like gruesome, bloody violence. It's like like violence is done to people. People die in his movies, but there's no spectacle associated with it. There's seldom even like dust squibs. People just there's like a sound cue and then someone falls over or something. And you can see that in so many of his movies, like Inception and the Dark Knight films, and also in this, which is a war film, which involves a lot of people being shot at, but very little return fire. It's just kind of like this unseen force from the sky comes down and rains hell on people, and then sometimes people stop moving. And that's kind of the extent of the spectacle associated with the violence. But Dunkirk is a very, very wet movie. A lot of it takes place in the open ocean for a variety of reasons, both above the ocean and on the actual water. And then also a lot of it takes place on the shoreline, on the beach, where there's a lot of harrowing drama involving sinking ships and people hiding from incoming gunfire and whatnot. Um, but yeah, very, very wet film in general. Very, very tense film on top of that. But yeah, that was a lot of war shit, Brad. Enough out of me. What do you have to say about these ones?
Well, Dunkirk, I meant to pull it off the shelf. I think I forgot, but that definitely qualifies. It is a water movie. People get very wet. You got people on boats, you got people in the water, you got people flying planes above the water. Great movie. I love Dunkirk. The first one, what was the title of that first one again?
Oh, that was Northern Limit Line.
Okay. And you said that was like a naval conflict on the ocean, or
Yeah,
okay.
Navy, but it's not like they had heavy munitions or anything. It's actually interesting. Like the style of combat is part of why I was interested in it, because it's so intimate and strange to just see people with assault rifles taking cover on the deck of like a frigate, like literally just small arms fire at each other. It's like old fashioned like pirate shit. And they have like they have cannons and whatnot, but they're not like battleship cannons or anything. They're not like
Mhm.
lobbing volleys of missiles at each other. It's like literally they're just like broadsiding each other and going like
Okay.
I've never seen that portrayed in film before, at least in a modern setting. Like I've seen Master and Commander and Pirates of the Caribbean and shit, um, but never in a modern war scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of interesting. And I've not seen that one, but the way you've described it, I think it qualifies. I'll give it the approval. Saving Private Ryan though, I don't know, man. I love the movie, but obviously, yeah, that opening sequence is iconic. But I don't know if it's enough for me because yeah, they get in on boats, but then they immediately get out of the water and get on the beach. Majority of that sequence is on the beach.
Bath. Isn't the town is the town named Bath?
If that's what you're using as your evidence, then I am giving you
The
that got
Paul
you even harder,
Giamatti town.
Vito.
Paul Giamatti town. Where where fucking Groot gets shot. Paul Giamatti's village. It's
Listen,
very
that
rainy. It's a very rainy village,
all
Brad.
right, all right. I haven't seen the movie in a while, so I don't
Vin
remember that
Diesel dies in
sequence.
the mud. It's moist, damn it.
Okay, all right. You're coming around a little bit. I'm still not sold though. I'm still not sold, I have to say.
Pretty sure somebody drinks from a canteen at some point.
Yeah, yeah, that is the case. But I mean, listen, this has nothing to do with you, but we got to bring this Mr. Steven Spielberg down a peg. Let's give him the veto. This guy, this guy, everybody's loving this guy because of the Fablemans, his new movie. Well, you know what, bud, you just got vetoed here. Sorry, Stevie.
Steven, you could have been a contender. You could have been part of the Aquatic Adventure Force, but Saving Private Ryan, so saith Brad, does not qualify as an aquatic adventure. So Saving Private
Yeah.
Ryan, sorry, something's got to go. You're the Gill man of today's Tales from the Shelf discussion. Sorry, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that Steven Spielberg has never made an aquatic adventure. I think it's absolutely safe
No,
to
I
say.
don't think he ever has, Brad.
Don't think
Not
so, yeah.
no, not even early in his career.
No,
Never.
no, certainly
No.
not
He's never made any
1975.
blockbusters that ever touched a body of water ever.
Yeah,
Ever.
yeah.
Never. I mean, I'm scanning my memory, but it's just, man, Steven.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry, bud.
bummer for him. But no, Dunkirk though, that is a great pick. That is one that I don't know why I forgot to pull it off the shelf, because it is one that I noted to mean to. Especially, isn't there the whole sequence? I've only seen that movie once. I saw it in theaters. I have not watched it since.
Me too.
But isn't there the sequence with the ship? Doesn't the ship flip over and they all jump off into the water? I mean, talk about water. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all you need.
Yeah.
I feel like for these water movies, I think people need to get wet. There's an element of people actually getting in the water and getting wet that for me is a big, like, that goes a long way.
So you got to get it wet if it's going to be qualifying as a aquatic adventure.
I think so.
Okay. You heard it here, folks. It's got to get wet. They got to get wet. The whole
Mhm.
cast, they must be wet. Dripping, sopping wet. That's what we're striving for in this discussion. Is discussions of actors that are dripping and sopping wet. Okay. So yeah, Dunkirk I quite like as well. I was really impressed with it. It's funny. I feel like almost everybody I know who has a positive opinion of it, which is basically the only people I know who've seen it, all express the same regret about not seeing it in the theater. Where it's just like, that was really good, man. I was like, that would have been excellent in the theater, and I was kicking myself because I did not go. I had a good feeling about it, but didn't happen. But I'm really glad I watched it because I thought it was a fantastic piece of filmmaking, potentially underseen. When they stick that landing, when everything converges, it's a beautiful moment, bolstered by a beautiful score by Hans Zimmer. I know it's easy to shit talk Hans Zimmer. I do it all the time. He does repeat himself quite often. Like, he does have a sound that is borderline ubiquitous in the world of mainstream cinema, to the point of being almost harmful to the craft. But his score for Dunkirk is outstanding. It's of his like more recent offerings. It's a highlight. Supermarine, folks, look it up. Supermarine is like 7-8 minutes of just like just like, it's amazing. It's an amazing piece of music. Really enjoyed that. But yeah, another movie I might go back and rewatch very soon. Goddamn, that's why I love doing these discussions. But anyway, that's enough on me, Brad. You want to call this one our last round here?
Yeah, we can do that. Now the question is, should I end on? Do you want me to end on a fringe case, or should I end on something that's not a fringe case? Because I've got one that you very well could veto.
Well, in the speed round, as we wrap things up with our runner ups, you'll get a chance to throw it out there anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like
Okay.
Everything will be vetoed that should be vetoed.
Well, let's go with this one then. And this could get vetoed too, I suppose. I don't want to assume. But this movie, it's different than everything else I've mentioned. I've mentioned a romantic adventure. I've mentioned a zombie film, a monster movie. This one is a comedy, an aquatic comedy. And it is a movie that came out a few years ago and probably was in recent years the hardest I've laughed in a movie theater. Like, I was losing it watching this movie in theaters, and that is director Harmony Korine's The Beach Bum with Matthew McConaughey. And this one, it takes place in Florida. Again, it's The Beach Bum. There's a lot of sequences on beaches, a lot of sequences in pools, a lot of sequences on boats, and there are sequences in the water, specifically Martin Lawrence, who is so funny in this movie. Like, Martin Lawrence's 5 minutes of screen time, I was rolling in the theater. Like, he is amazing in this. And he is I don't know exactly what he does, but he loves dolphins. He's a big dolphin lover. And there's a sequence where he's out giving people dolphin tours, I guess. He's like taking them into the water. And so he gets in the water with them. I think Matthew McConaughey might get in the water as well in that sequence, but that moment is amazing. And I like Harmony Korine quite a bit. He is not for everybody, that is for sure. This actually might be maybe his most accessible movie. This might even be more accessible than Spring Breakers, because more than any of his other movies, this one is just a straightforward comedy. Still has his style 100%, but a lot of his other stuff is a little more. There's a little bit more of an edge to it. This one, even though visually and in terms of its feel, it feels like a Harmony Korine movie, it just is leaning way more into the comedy than a lot of his other stuff. And I have a ton of fun with this one. I've seen it a couple times now. Zac Efron is really funny in it. He's really good, and it's a real hoot. It's a real treat. And I don't know what Harmony Korine has on the docket next, but I like the guy quite a bit. Trevor, have you seen any of this guy's pictures?
I think the only film of his that I've seen is Gummo, and that's an
Okay.
early one from him. So I'm not like up to date. I'm of course aware of Spring Breakers, and you've actually mentioned The Beach Bum before, such that I'm like, man, that movie means a lot to Brad. Like, Brad really enjoyed that. I should probably check that out. And I haven't forgotten that. Like, I'm very curious as to exactly what that is, because Harmony Korine, like you said, absolutely not for everybody.
Mhm.
His aesthetic could only be described as grotesque. Um, but he has. I want to say, and this is a stretch because I've only seen the one movie from the guy, and other than that, it's just like marketing material and whatnot that I've borne witness to over the years. But I want to say he has like a Mike Judge kind of quality to him, where he observes people in the U.S. in particular, and he kind of his vision of this country seems to be like a hyper real rendition of it, or it's like Florida Man the movie.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't know if that's
Mhm.
accurate, but that's kind of the vibe I get. Is just like, this is holding up a mirror to some of the more outrageous aspects of American society.
Yeah, you're about right on with that. It's kind of like the whole, like, the cliche of, finding the beauty in the ugliness of certain aspects of America.
Yeah,
And I think Gummo probably best realizes that. Gummo's one only seen Gummo once. I know a lot of people say a lot of people love Gummo, a lot of people hate Gummo. I liked it. I kind of, because I like Harmony Korine, I wanted to love it more, and maybe now that I've experienced it, maybe I would like it more, because there are some amazing sequences in Gummo. I mean, if you like,
amazing.
yeah, I mean, if you like watching people eat spaghetti, I mean, there's Gummo and Blue is the Warmest Color are probably the two greatest. Those are the masterpieces of eating spaghetti in cinema. So, but yeah, I like Harmony Korine quite a bit. I really like Spring Breakers as well. Um, The only one of his I have not seen, I think, is Trash Humpers, uh, which is unfortunate because with the title like that, I should definitely check it out. But I don't think it's easily available to watch. Gummo as well. Gummo is not an easy one to watch. I don't, at least the last time I sought it out. I don't believe it has any sort of Blu-ray release. It probably has a DVD, I would assume, but
Yeah.
like it wasn't even available for rent last time I wanted to watch it. So, um, but yeah, it's, again, not something I would recommend to a lot of people. But the Beach Bum, I think people might not love it like I do, but it's at least something that I think people could watch and they would at least watch it to the end. Gummo and Mr. Lonely, like a lot of his other stuff, I don't think people would finish. So at least whether that's for good or bad, if you're a Harmony Korine fan, at least now his stuff, is a little bit more mainstream, but was still retaining his style. I don't think he's sacrificed anything.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, like he has a vision, like he has an aesthetic, he has a brand. It doesn't, it's not mainstream. Most certainly would not work for just anybody, but he knows what he's doing, and it works for some people like you, Brad. But yeah, The Beach Bum is a movie that I definitely would like to check out, just because I have no idea what it actually is. Um, but it has a lot of talent involved in it, a lot of talent that I generally enjoy watching, regardless of like what they're doing in it. Like Martin Lawrence is one of those figures that like his mainstream presence like has dwindled in more recent years, but like there's undeniable talent when he's on. Like when he's on, he's pretty great. So I'd be really curious to see his dolphin thing in that. But that also came out, I want to say, during the McConaissance, the Matthew McConaughey Renaissance or whatever, when he was kind of making his Oscar bid. Like, am I right on that with the timing?
It was a little bit on the tail end of it. I think he
Gotcha.
was coming down from it a little bit, because the movie did not do very well. Um, I mean, relatively, like, if it came out and made that much now, people would be probably shocked. But at the time, it was considered a bit of a dud at the box office, especially with him being in it. I think they were hoping that would be the selling point.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a niche movie intended for niche audiences, despite the glitz and glamour associated with some of the names involved in it.
Mhm.
So maybe that was a bad move, but it sounds like everybody showed up to play though. So maybe it's for the best for the overall quality of the product. But yeah, that's one I would very much like to watch. I'd never forgotten about that because you have brought it up before, and it's like I have no idea what it is about that movie, but Brad seems to really like
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's probably one of my favorite comedies of the last 5 years or whatever, so
Okay. Well, I think I'm actually going to cut things short and not do a final pick for myself. So let us advance to the speed round. Folks at home, if you're not aware of what's about to happen, the speed round is essentially where Brad and I take any of our runner ups, that is, titles associated with the theme for this month's discussion, in this case, Aquatic Adventures. And we just say a little something, in a quick fashion about the movies that we had set aside, but just didn't get into in a full blown discussion. So instead of like a back and forth, we're just going to rattle through these picks in rapid succession. So, Brad, would you like a minute to collect yourself, or should I just go ahead with mine?
you can go first if you want, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure. I already got the single take, so I may as well. I will try to go through these as quickly as I can. Uh, so, um, and remember, these are runner-ups for a reason. Like, like a lot of these, it's just like I have fuck all to say about that. First one is exactly one of those. This is, I believe, James Wan's Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa. Yeah, I mean, Aqua, man, aquatic adventure. Durr.
Definitely qualifies.
I, I hope so. I have here a movie that this is a bootleg. Sorry, uh, but it's Region Zero, but it's also on DVD. So double barf for Brad. Sorry about that. Hope you bought your barf bag. I have Bokoku no Aegis, or uh, it's like aimless or like without a nation, Aegis, as in the shield. So this is Die Hard on a Frigate. This is a
Hmm.
Japanese action film, and it's really hard to tell from the cover because it's a terrible angle. But this is Hiroyuki Sanada, who you have seen in American films. He's in the Mortal Kombat, the most recent Mortal Kombat. He's in a Bullet Train. He's in the
Hmm.
Last Samurai. He's a I believe he was a protege of Sonny Chiba back in the day. Japanese martial artist slash actor slash national fucking treasure. Respect. This is Die Hard on a frigate, and the bad guys are North Korean, and it's a Japanese frigate. And this one also has Shin Gojira, like bureaucracy, as a plot point, where there's a situation where Japan has a self defense force. They don't have a proper military, so they can only retaliate when attacked. They can't be preemptive with any sort of military action. So there's lots of plot points of men in suits talking about like, so we're being threatened with like nuclear weapons and shit. Can we like do anything? And it's like, oh no, can we do anything? And then it cuts back to like the sailors fighting for their lives on this ship. And it's like, I don't know if we can do anything. Like they haven't actually technically they haven't like officially declared war. Funny shit like that.
Hmm.
I love stuff like that in Japanese cinema. Like you can tell that it's a point of contention with them. But I have here, and sorry about the box and the sticker, by the way. This needs some goo gone.
Oh boy.
I have Quentin Tarantino presents Tony Jaa in The Protector from Blockbuster Video for $3.99.
See, I kind of like that actually. In fact, the thing that I dislike is that you tried to remove the sticker. I think you should have
I
just left
did
the
not
sticker on.
actually. I
Oh, really? It
didn't.
came like that.
No,
Okay.
it came like that. I
All
wouldn't
right.
do that. It's a historical document.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, R.I.P. Blockbuster, R.I.P. Mills Lane, and R.I.P. James Horner, and R.I.P. Blockbuster. This is Tam Yong Goong in the original Thai. This is the American version, which cuts out a lot of the racist shit involving the Chinese in this movie. And also, it has Loud and Proud, very similar to what we were doing with Eli Roth movies, where they would put the name on the poster, Big as Life and Twice as Ugly, when in actuality they had nothing to do with it. Like all Tarantino did was probably pay some rights acquisition costs or something to bring it to the States. This is, I think, like Tony Jaa's second or third major film. This one features a sequence between himself and a capoeira fighter. Actually, it's like three different guys in one sequence where the entire floor has like 3-4 inches of water. So everything is in slow motion, and every movement of the legs, every kick causes water to go. So
Okay.
it's very fanciful. It's very much riffing on Hero, which I think came out very shortly before this, if not like the same year. I have Ghost in the Shell, Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell, which of course features the stunning title sequence with the making of a cyborg or an android. Beautiful music by Kenji Kawai. Also, water as a motif is very, very important to this film in general. Like the climactic action sequence features it. There's an early action sequence featuring similar effects to what we saw in Tam Yong Goong, but in animated form, where like people are kicking and water is going. Psh.
Okay.
And also, there's a sequence where our main character goes skin diving, despite having a metallic exoskeleton or a metallic endoskeleton that would weigh them down and cause them to drown. Water is a very important theme visually in this film.
Okay. I'll allow it. I don't remember, but I'll allow it.
Okay, okay,
I'll,
it's
I'm
been
going
allowed.
based on you. I'm going based on you on this.
It's been allowed. Um, I can't remember who directed this one, but this movie called Jaws,
Yeah, yeah.
Jaws, Jaws. Some asshole directed that movie. I think it takes place on the water. I don't know. Maybe you know, Brad. I
I
have The
guess I'll allow it.
Shallows on 4K. Look at the fucking cover, for fuck's
Hmm.
sake. Like roughly 2/3 of the cover is the water. It's about a shark attacking a lady.
Forgot to grab that one too. What the hell am I doing?
I have the Meg, bigger shark attacking some lady and some bald dude. Uh, Lethal Weapon fucking 4 in the Lethal Weapon British box set. The great British box set of Lethal Weapons. Terrible cover art. With a stick of dynamite, Jesus. Lethal Weapon 4, the climax of the battle between Jet Li and Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. If you don't remember, Brad, Jet Li gets shot the fuck up with an AK-47 underwater. So they
Okay.
had to film that in a water tank. A really spectacular kill and really spectacular, not like ornate choreography, but really gritty tooth and nail fight sequence at the end of that movie. Caught me off guard. I really loved that one. Sector 7 in 3D. This is a Korean monster movie post uh, The Host, which is a better Korean monster movie, much better one, in fact. Sector 7, I remember waiting for a really, really, really long time to see because I was just curious about it. And it takes place on an oil platform and involves a petroleum eating monster that it's goopy and has lots of bony protrusions. Unfortunately, it's done almost entirely in CGI and it doesn't have a lot of good interaction with any of the cast. Like people get dragged off screen, and that's not particularly violent or anything. I don't remember liking it very much, and also it goes completely off the rails and turns into a fucking Mila Jovovich Resident Evil movie, a later era Resident Evil movie in its final act, where people are there's motorcycle stunts on an oil platform at the end of this movie. I'll just leave it at that. Fire
Nice.
and motorcycles on an oil platform in the middle of the ocean. Triple X, the return of Xander Cage. You can see, you can see Triple X himself. You can see Vin Diesel riding a dirt bike in in a wave. He's surfing on a dirt bike on the beach. This movie's ending sequence is literally that, and it is completely and utterly bonkers. It's like some Bollywood shit.
Yeah.
This was actually a movie I was hoping to get a clip of to show you in case you hadn't seen the end of it, where I believe it's Donnie Yen and Vin Diesel throw down on dirt bikes in waves, like crashing waves on the beach. It's pretty spectacular and stupid.
Yeah.
Emphasis on stupid. I have A Cure for Wellness, which I've talked about this movie way too many times, but water is a huge component of the visual motifs present in this film. Just leave it at that. I like that movie a lot. I would like
Hmm.
to review it someday for the podcast. And then Crawl, because it's fucking Crawl, man. I also talk about that pretty much every episode, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But anyway, that was a very long speed round, so I'll kick it back to you, Brad.
Well, I'll quick just some crawl. Got to do it.
Well, wait.
Um,
How is Crawl spelt backwards?
la
L-
Lark, Lark,
Lawark.
Lark.
Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. This is a little movie called Swage.
Swage. It features a
Jaws.
shark. Yeah.
Um,
Swage.
Somebody's got to take this Steven Spielberg guy down, but you know what? I took him down because I didn't buy the 4K. I guess that's where I took him down a peg.
Oh.
I have a handful of eat 'em ups involving water that I have not watched, so I'm assuming based on their content that they involve water. But I guess I don't know because I haven't watched them. I have Cruel Jaws, Cruel Swage, Cruel. Which I mean, if Jaws isn't cruel enough for you, you got to check out Cruel Jaws, which is apparently a horrendous movie. Or apparently, it steals shots and footage from some other shark movie and just assembles it together. But but it did get put out on Blu-ray from Severin. I picked that up. I have The Great Alligator, from a code, which is a Code Red release. I have Killer Crocodile and Killer Crocodile 2 double feature, which is another Severin release. I like how they did this with the both, the slipcover, both sides. I like that. That's a nice touch. And a Scream Factory steelbook of Humanoids from the Deep, um, which I have not seen any of these, but I think they all involve water.
Second. Great picks. I love the Killer Crocodile one, but sorry to interrupt your speed round, but
Oh, you're good, man.
I believe that was an early James Horner score.
Okay. Yep.
And if my ears remember correctly, I believe he was testing some shit that would end up in Aliens in that score. Because I think the story goes Aliens was a troubled piece, like a troubled composition, and he was probably tearing his hair out just trying to get it fucking done.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought there was some sort of James Cameron connection for this, but I couldn't remember what. So I think you're right on with that. So yeah, there's a handful. Let's see. Let's go with this one. This one is probably my most fringe case. It is not necessarily a water movie, but it has one sequence that is very wet. Very wet. It might be the most wet sequence of any movie we've talked about. And that is Jumanji. Jumanji, which has a sequence involving a indoor monsoon in a house that floods. Everybody's in the water. Some of them are floating on doors, pieces of wood, and of course a giant crocodile comes in, and they're battling the crocodile. Very wet. It ends with the front door bursting open and the water rushing down the street. The children's aunt and the sheriff are caught up in the flood, and they're rushing down the street together. They're on pieces of plywood, and the gator swims past them. Very much a mini aquatic adventure within a larger movie. And when I was thinking of movies where people get wet, this movie jumped to the top of my mind. So I personally think it qualifies, but it is my most fringe case. So if you want to use your veto, you better use it now, because I don't think you're going to get another chance.
Without Basic Instinct or Fatal Attraction there for a second. I mean, they do fucking a sink in Fatal Attraction. And a rabbit gets boiled. There's some water in that movie. And she gets weird when it rains. She gets weird when it rains. And also the finale happens in a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, too many bathrooms. You could never have too many bathrooms. I'll allow it because it's a major set piece in a movie that's chock full of them. I love that movie, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, like, Robin Williams was just totally on fire, and like during that period for anybody who grew up then. But that movie it's just like bang, bang, bang. Just like they do so much with every aspect of it. It's like, wow, they really did a jungle adventure movie in just a town. It's really cool how they put that movie together, and also the special effects. While some of that CGI is a little bit raggedy by today's standards, there's enough puppetry and animatronics in there that it's like, you'll find something you like in there. But I forget the whole line, but I remember Robin Williams saying, like, but a lot of it will kill you, in regards to the rain. And so the rain it's a factor in terms of heightening the tension and the danger. Like, it's not just there. It's not just there for aesthetic purposes or anything. It's a participant. And by that logic, I'll allow it.
There we go. I mean, this was definitely a movie in my childhood that got to be up there with Jurassic Park and, a few others, and most rewatched when I was a kid. Like, I watched the shit out of this movie all the time. So it's no surprise that I love movies involving creatures and, killer animals and stuff like that. Also, I forgot that at the end of the movie, they do throw the board, the game, into water. And at the final shot, it does wash up on a beach. So, I mean, this isn't even a fringe case. Who am I kidding? This is a great pick. Come on, I know you already proved it, but let's go.
I think the lesson we learned today is that Steven Spielberg has never made an aquatic action film.
Mhm.
Aquatic Adventures are just something he's never been able to get a hold on. Like
No,
maybe he's taken a crack at it. I don't know. Um, but beyond that, mostly you can lawyer your way through pretty much any aquatic adventure. In some shot in virtually any film, somebody will take a sip of water, and therefore some amount of tension and danger will have emerged from the experience, and therefore it's an aquatic adventure. Um,
exactly.
yeah, good episode, Brad. This was a solid one. I enjoyed this quite a lot. This was kind of an odd theme, but clearly it's something that's very easy for us to talk about. So as always, man, thank you for joining me in talking some movies and whatnot. I really hope to have you back soon for Blu-ray or whatever comes next. But in the meantime, would you care to let the folks at home know where they can find you and your super awesome podcast?
Yeah, it's the Cinema Speak podcast. So we're on Twitter at the Cinema Speak, on Instagram, Cinema Speak Podcast, and on YouTube as Cinema Speak. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever you. I'm doing how I usually end. But anyway, yeah, you can also rate, reviews, do all that. But and you can find us on the web at cinemaspeak.libsyn.com.
Yeah, please rate, review, subscribe, all that nonsense. And
I didn't mean to
also,
push that so much, but
no, that's fine, man. You got to do some of that self promotion shit. And also, you'll be delighted to know, dear listeners, that if you scrub through the entirety of Brad's Letterboxd account, you will not find a single television movie or television series logged in there because Brad
television
has
movie,
principles.
television movie, you could find that. That is
Miniseries,
fair.
excuse me,
Miniseries, yeah,
miniseries.
you got
Okay, I found my way to it, Brad. I know we have strict laws in these discussions, and Brad.
And if you do find one, let me know and I will remove it. So if I somehow one slipped through the cracks, let me know because it's out of there.
Brad the judge. Okay, well, anyway, my turn, I guess. Folks at home, if you care to catch up on any of our other Catching Up on Cinema content, you can find all of that collected on our website at CatchingUpOnCinema.com. You can also find us on the social medias in the form of the Twitter at Catching Cinema, as well as the Instagram at Catching Up on Cinema. So feel free to hit me up at either of those. And you can find the podcast on pretty much every podcasting platform you can imagine, including Bitcade. So fucking Google it. And that being said, oh, wait, I have a special treat that hopefully won't bork the stream. So before I do my big sign off here, Brad, I have a sneaky final pick that I took the time 10 minutes before we logged onto the stream, 10 minutes to isolate a clip from my own disc using technology that I can't possibly describe to you. Within 10 minutes, I was able to grab the clip that I needed to exhibit this film because this is a film that nobody in their right mind has seen, although maybe they will now because I'm using this opportunity to promote this bitch. So I have here in my hands an aquatic action film in that it takes place in a Olympic swimming facility. It's Die Hard in an Olympic swimming facility.
Okay.
Go figure. I have here Blast, starring Lyndon Ashby, who is on the cover. And yes, the cover is evocative of Die Hard. It is Die Hard in an Olympic swimming facility. Lyndon Ashby, who you will, of course, remember from Mortal Kombat as Johnny Cage. And then Andrew, the Wishmaster Devoff, is in here as well. And then Rutger Hauer, the national treasure to the Netherlands, Rutger Hauer, here playing a Native American man in a wheelchair in brownface. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, speaking of rest in peace, Albert Pyun directed this film. So yet another person to add to the pile of, hopefully not forgotten, gone but not forgotten. I'm going to test this here. So to provide context, like I said, I isolate a clip from this film. So I'm going to let it whirl, Brad, and We're going to see if this magic works or if it totally borks the stream at the finish line. So I present to you the finale of Albert Pyun's Blast.
Oh, that's amazing.
Did you catch the rusty gate sound effect playing over the explosion? And also the soundtrack, which is in no way influenced by Mark Mancina's score for Speed. But yeah, that's the finale for Blast, wherein Native American Rutger Hauer, I think, stabs the Wishmaster in the stomach, does a forward tumble out of his mechanical wheelchair into the swimming pool. He leaves a sticky note on his ass pad saying "Time's up," which then explodes and kills the Wishmaster, thus ending the film.
That is great, and I feel like I don't know if it was that clip or you've mentioned this movie to me before
I
because
have.
as soon as you said Rutger Hauer playing a Native American, I was like, hang on, this is the only movie where he did that, right? Because that sounds familiar.
That would be really bad. But yeah, yeah, I felt the world needed to see that. More people need to be aware of this because yes,
Yeah,
that is a way to end a fucking film. Inspired by true events, by the way.
really.
They say that loud and proud on the opening credits of the movie. Fuck me.
Oh
Anyway,
man.
yeah. This has been Tales from the Shelf. I already said the spiel, so we will catch you next time. Bye.